I'm Dr. Dan from Vitamin Pro, and we want to talk a little bit about heart disease, which I think is appropriate on a nutritional site because about 600,000 people die of heart disease every year. Now, did you know that the most common early sign of heart problems is sudden death? Most people find that fact kind of interesting. But maybe you're one of those people that's not going to die early. Maybe it's going to kill you after 30, 40 years of problems. So, why wouldn't you change your diet if you were, and take steps, like stop smoking and get some exercise, if you were in a high-risk group? Now, apparently death isn't enough of a deterrent to this. So I want to talk a little bit about decrease in lifestyle, and limitations from heart problems. So when those small arteries of the heart start to get clogged up, those aren't the only ones that get clogged up. Also, the ones that are associated with reproduction are also part of the package. So, do you think it's an accident that Viagra is such a huge seller? Why is that? Well, it's because that's one of the early signs of heart disease is erectile dysfunction, and of course, if that affects a woman, maybe you're going to have a decreased libido as well. So, libido is one of those things that people talk about some, but from a medical point of view, it's an important indicator of the overall health of a person, because good libido, of course, is part of a healthy biological response. So if you find that this libido is waning, you should be concerned about that, and especially if you have erectile dysfunction to go with that. So what might be some of the causes of heart disease, and how can you make these changes? Well, it's not that hard, really. Barry Sears did a lot of work on this in the 90s, and he talked about a 40-30-30 diet and limiting your carbohydrates and keeping that fat, carbohydrate, and protein ratio in an acceptable form. And I think there's some validity to that. And of course, he did it because he knew that if he didn't, he would be dead by the time he was 50 of heart problems, from a long, strong family history of that. Now, also I mentioned smoking and getting some basic aerobic type exercise. That's key. It can be something as simple as walking. But also from a dietary point of view, I want to stress things like non-GMO foods, ordering organic and free range as much as possible. And the reason you do that is because that's what people had, 150 years ago. There was no such thing as non-organic food or GMO food because it didn't exist. And many of those people, unless they died of infection, managed to live a pretty long life. So, and they certainly didn't have heart disease. Now, if you look at the graphs of trans fats, the introduction of trans fats into our diet and heart disease, you'll find that those things correlate quite nicely. So researchers have known for over 50 years that trans fats are major contributors. So you can do a lot for yourself just by getting those trans fats out of your diet. Read the labels. If it says trans fat, don't eat it. And many of your popular favorite packaged foods are full of that. And I just did a video on that to explain why trans fats are bad, but I won't go into it here. When you get to vote for politicians and propositions and that kind of thing, maybe a few times a decade, but you get to vote, several times a week with your dollar on what you choose to eat at the grocery store. So if you want more healthy selections and more options, then that's where you should be voting with your dollar. So the point here is that maybe you're not going to be the one that's going to drop over dead of a heart attack. Maybe that's not scary for you, but maybe having a life with low libido and not being able to do some very basic things in your life, maybe that's scary to you. Well, I hope so. So you'll make these changes, because everything you do that makes your life healthy makes it better for the people around you too. So that's the basic tip here from Vitamin Pro. Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks a lot for listening.